Truly grateful to be here, a little past my bedtime, but always grateful to serve at any capacity in Narcotics Anonymous. My topic is We Do Recover, and just for today I'm grateful. Like, listen, we do recover, right? Like, when at the end of the road, we found that we can no longer function as human beings. Like, I was introduced to Narcotics Anonymous a long time ago. I feel like I'm talking for you guys because, I know I sponsor a couple guys in here, let's put it that way. And, but like, the progression of this disease, man, like, I didn't think I had a problem. I did it for all the wrong reasons. I did it for my family. I did it for my father. Let me be honest. And I don't know why I've been reflecting on this. Probably because in a couple of months, I'm going to be the same age my father was when he died. And he died 2 months after I went into my first treatment, 30 years ago. And I went into a facility, right, and I heard the message, and people came in and they carried the message, and I'm grateful for them because they planted the small seed, right? And I got out and I stayed clean for a couple of months, and on New Year's Eve he had a heart attack and died. And I had nothing to cope with that, right? Because like most addicts, I wasn't good with feelings. So the only thing I knew how to do was try to mask those feelings and go out and use, right? And reflecting back today, right? It was like the most selfish thing I could have ever done to my family, right? Because recovery gives us the ability to look back and reflect on the mistakes we've made if we're doing any kind of work in here, and look at, I look at, like, while my family was trying to plan my father's funeral, they were also trying to find me because I was out using, right? Because a lot of times when we're using, total self-centeredness, this disease is all, it's all about us, right? So I never even took into consideration what they were going through. I just cared about how I felt. And that's how I spent most of my life, and that's the progression of my disease, right? Was that I did anything and everything that suited me, not taking into consideration other people or what they were going through or what they were feeling. And I told the great lies that I ain't hurting anybody but myself. Mm-hmm. And, so like, that was my introduction to Narcotics Anonymous. And I'm grateful for that. And I came in and out of the rooms, right? And I thank God for, like, and I'm reading one of our preambles by talking about that piece about We Do Recover, right? Was like, thank God that this is not a religious program. Because I was the guy that walked in here with a big resentment. As soon as you guys started talking about God, and I saw the plate going around, you know what I'm saying? The resentment started. And I'm like, oh, what fun is this for? You know what I'm saying? Because of my upbringing. And I always joke because I grew up, and I say I came in with religious trauma. Like, I grew up in the church, right? And I saw, like, all that my father did. And I saw how nobody was there after he was gone. You know what I'm saying? So I was always looking for, comparing. And it says to come in here and look for the similarities and not compare. But when I walked in, I don't know how everybody else walked in here. Every time I walked in here, I could compare a little bit more. Because pain is a motivating factor to change your life, right? The progression of the disease was every time I got my ass kicked more and more, I was willing to try a little bit more, right? So I came in and they started talking about God, and they might have said God once, and I heard God, and I grew up with that punishing God. Like, anything I was ever going to be able to do, I wasn't going to be good enough, so why bother? That was my mentality, right? And if he was, and I thought like this happened to him, you know what I mean? So I had a real distorted belief system when I walked in here, real distorted. You know what I mean? From childhood trauma, from religious trauma, from all these things. And then I came in here and I didn't understand the lingo. I didn't understand what people were saying. I couldn't identify with because I hadn't done any work. So what did I do? I came in and out of the rooms for years and I heard people share all those things and talk about your feelings. Yep. I learned how to stuff that along my whole life. I ain't sharing that shit with you people. You know what I'm saying? So everything was like a conflict to me. Right? But it talks about, and we do recover, when at the end of the road we found that we could no longer function as human beings either with or without drugs. We all face the same dilemma. What is there left to do? Right? And I remember like always finding myself caught in like, why am I living this way? I was a guy that couldn't show emotion. I couldn't cry. All I knew how to be was angry. You know what I mean? I come from a Puerto Rican family, and I joke with people sometimes, and I go, listen, I came from that hater family, right? Like we talk about everybody first before we talk about anything. We compare everybody to everybody. We kick each other's backs in. You know what I'm saying? And that was just the mentality, was like come in here and not be loving and caring, right? So I know for me, I came in and out of the rooms for a lot of years, and then I came and finally the pain had gotten great enough, right? And I tried to do something different, and I stayed. And I'm not one of those addicts that came and stayed clean. Like, listen, I gotta say, like, this disease lives with you every day. Right? We get a daily reprieve. I could go to bed today and have the greatest day in the world and wake up tomorrow and be off the hook. Right? And I remember like with almost 3 years clean doing that thing where I started to develop a relationship with people. I had a sponsor, right? Sometimes the person that's suffering in here isn't just a newcomer. It's the person that's starting to get some time and starting to feel the emotions that you never dealt with in your life. You find yourself at an impasse of something that you've never even experienced before. Feelings that you're like, what is this? You know what I'm saying? Feeling like you want to cry, but you're too macho for that shit. So you don't want to let that emotion out. You know what I'm saying? And I found myself with almost 3 years clean in all kinds of crazy behavior. You know, the wife, the girlfriend, the all this craziness, right? And I found myself saying, I don't need to tell people that, right? That's not that big a deal. I don't need to share that. With or without drugs. You can find yourself crazy as fuck here in Narcotics Anonymous. Clean, right? I remember going to the spot and saying, I'm gonna drive through here because like we started testing God, right? And I said, I'm gonna go through this spot. And if nobody's out, I'm not going to get high. And guess what? I went through there and nobody was out. And what I say? I'm going to just go around the block and try one more time. Right? God gave me the first one. And everybody was out. And I never even took into consideration all the people that I was going to hurt if I made this decision. And I did it anyway. And I remember finding myself back. Right? Like, listen, man, I opened that door, I opened Pandora's box, and we go right back to being exactly who we were. And I found myself, it took days. I can't even say it took months, weeks, years. It took days to turn into the guy I was when I walked in here 3 years before. Right? And I remember like getting high. It talks about in our literature like using against our own will. I remember going to get high and going, the anticipation of using is worse than the fucking using. And I'm having these conversations with myself and I'm like, this shit is not gonna end well. Because I know me and I know how I use. right? And I found myself doing it anyway and hurting people and the wounded look in another person's eyes and finding myself caught up in all kinds of crazy behaviors and going like, it is what it is. Starting to tell myself the lie. You know what I mean? This is who I am. I'm good at this shit. You don't know? Crazy. We tell ourselves some crazy shit, right? And thank God that the people in Narcotics Anonymous, right, prayed for me, prayed me back into these rooms, right? This is a spiritual program in nature, right? And I believe that everyone's spirit touched my spirit because I found myself like after like 9 months, right? Like I had to lose everything. I had to lose the wife, the kids, the home, everything. And I remember someone I cared about was hurt, and I was visiting them, and I'm pointing to my wife, who wasn't my wife then, but is my wife now. And I said, I think I'm gonna go to a meeting and get a white key tag. And I remember the tears in her eyes for being happy for me that I was willing to do something for myself. And I walked into a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, and somebody that's at this convention that's gonna speak tomorrow something was celebrating. And they had balloons and all this stuff. And all that macho bullshit just fell to the wayside. And I remember I walked in and people said, "Oh my God, it's so good to see you." And they gave me a hug. They were like, "Man, I've been waiting for you to walk back in this door." And I remember like them giving me hugs. And I remember getting that white key tag, right? And trying to share. And the fucking tears are flowing. And I said it would have been easier to have stayed clean than to go out and use and try to come back. I feel for people that go out with time. I feel that pain for them. I'll never forget what that shit felt like. And I could show that emotion today because I know what it feels like to give up something so precious and to minimize it and think it's not worth it, and then find yourself fucking in it again, man. I did it again. You know what I mean? Like, fuck. And I remember like every day just holding on, right? And like I wanted to get high. And even people that were in the fellowship that had made a decision to use were like next door to where I was at. And I would go out there and smoke a cigarette, man. And the disease was trying to beat me down every fucking day. Because I had let that thing loose again. And it would say, just go get high with them. Right? And I would hear this voice in the back of my head go, and then what? Like it talks about and we do recover. Right? And then what? I'ma still want to get clean. I'ma still want to get my life together. I just went through this. Why am I going to do it to myself again? And I remember just holding on. And I would say, I would hear and I believe it was God. And I would hear that voice say, take your ass in the bed and go to sleep. And I would take my ass in the bed and I'd go to sleep, man. And I would hold white knuckle and hold on. And I gotta say that like some days, life is good today. And almost 19 years later, right? Some days, my head still says, just take your ass to bed. Right? Because like, the disease is not impressed with time. The disease is not impressed with step work. The disease knows everything that I know. And it will use that shit against me. I found myself in pain, clean, right? Watching people suffer, watching people use, watching loved ones pass away, and the disease just shows the fuck up, tries to beat me down. But what happens is that the recovery has started to surpass that voice. And I start to hear, just take your ass, go lay down. This moment too shall pass. So I have found hundreds and hundreds of reasons to stay. And just for today, I ain't got no reasons to leave. I am truly grateful to be clean. I am truly grateful to be in Narcotics Anonymous. I am truly grateful to be in service. Like, listen, one of the greatest gifts I got out of recovery, right, was the ability to like show up for my family, to be able to show up for my children, to give them a new perspective. You know, I got older children because I'm not a young man anymore. So, you know, and thank God they're not me. You know what I'm saying? I don't beat them with to try to tell them the literature and all this shit, because I know when I was growing up, the more you try to tell me something, the opposite I wanted to do, right? I try to live by example to them. I try to live by example. I remember my sponsor, right, telling me to walk. You got to learn to walk in here with posture. And I used to be like, the fuck's that mean? And he goes, listen, man, when you finally start to live what you talk about and everything lines up, you ain't full of shit anymore, right? That's what I mean. And I gotta be honest, like, that man was with me through a divorce, through the loss of everything, through happy times, through sad times, through a new marriage, through everything. And then I watched him lose his connection to Narcotics Anonymous. And I don't even know if he went out and used, but I remember like watching him isolate and push himself away and say, I ain't never been screwed over more than people in Narcotics Anonymous. And I used to say, like, bro, you taught me how to change my perspective and look at things in a new light. And now you can't even see what's happening. And I remember walking up to him and like all his sponsees had left him. And I was the only one, and I walked up and I said, I love you, but it's time for me to move on, because I can't follow you out the door. And he said, I was wondering when this conversation was coming, and you were the only thing that was keeping me here. And in that moment, I was hurt, because I said, am I going to be the reason that he leaves? But I can't carry the addict. That's something you got to do for yourself. And I watched him leave Narcotics Anonymous. And I got another sponsor. And now I'm at another impasse. Not because my sponsor's leaving NA or nothing like that, but he's getting ready to like probably move across the world. And somebody asked me, how do you feel about that? And I was like, I feel like it's happening again. But I'm gonna get another sponsor. Because like just for today, man, I choose to stay here. I choose to stay visible and available. I choose to keep doing what I've been doing for the last few years that I've been here. And I realized something, like I was sitting there talking to a young lady and I go, this was the first convention I made ever in 2005, right? And I remember making this convention with a man I sponsored, and I was telling her, like, he bought a motorcycle on a Tuesday, and he always came to my home group on Wednesday, and he picked his bike up on Tuesday and went to work on Wednesday, and I'm pretty sure he was headed to my home group. 24 hours later, a girl cut him off and killed him. Clean, with a 3-month-old that I'm still to this day her godfather. And she texts me with FaceTime. They moved to Florida, and I try to get there as much as I can. And I remember not blaming God for that. Right? And I remember men that he sponsored, that I started to sponsor. And I said, the way we honor those people that we've lost is by staying here and staying clean and continuing to do what we do. That's how we honor them. And I gotta say, out of the two men that he sponsored, that I sponsored, one they found in the bathroom in his apartment, brain dead. The other one they found at a Rite Aid, dead. Because they made a choice. Like we all get a choice, man. We get a daily reprieve, and every day we get a choice to be happy. Because in case you don't know, happiness is a choice. We get a choice to be clean. We have a choice to continue to recover. We have a choice to call our sponsor. But we got a choice to sit on our own shit and let that shit fester and get worse. I have learned that, like, you know, I remember people saying things in here, and like we think like we got some unique spin on some shit, and everything that we share or we come up here and speak and all that is just somebody else's shit that we heard along the way, and we made it our stuff. You know what I mean? And like that's the beauty, is that like none of us here are unique. Like we all suffer from, listen, the same bug that bit my ass bit yours. For real. We are more similar than we are different. We're not good with feelings. We're not good with sharing the truth all the time. Still want to sound good, right? Want to believe that life is always rainbows and sunshines when it ain't. Life is messy and life is hard. Recovery gives me the ability to show up. Right? I remember when I was using, man, and I wanted to be that guy that could give you my word. I'll be there for you. And the disease had the ability to just take that and, nah. He'll understand. Right? And like today, I choose to live. I choose to continue to show up. You know what I mean? I was like, when Ethan called me at like 12:15, I was like, damn, that's late. I was like, there's gonna be like 3 of us in there. You know what I mean? I was close. There's like 5 of us in here, right? But reality is, we're supposed to all be here together right now. That's just how it is. We're supposed to be sitting here, like having a conversation, talking about recovery, man. Like, I don't know where all these years went. I'm gonna be real honest with you. Life just gone. You know what I mean? And now I look like I've got grandchildren now, and I look at like I'm getting older, and I'm aging in recovery. Like you hear all this like aging in recovery, right? And I was hanging out. I was on a job, and my boss I've known for 30-something years goes, "Did you ever think 30 years ago that you'd be working for me? I would own the company?" And I go, 30 years ago, I couldn't see 30 days in front of me. I didn't even know if I'd make it to the age I am now. And like just for today, man, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that just for today, I was able to surrender. Just for today, I'm able to show up. Even when my head and the disease tells me not to. And just for today, I'm going to continue to show up. Thanks for letting me share.